Welcome to Squatch and Holler. Please like and subscribe.
And hit that bell.
Hey, y'all. I appreciate y'all stopping by. We've got 33 comments already. A bunch of y'all in here. Hold on a second. So we got a bunch of regulars in the house. We've got Jeremiah, David, Diane, Jesse, Abnormal Investigations, Bobby, and some more. But y'all almost wasn't here. We just had a storm hit. I've got trees down in the backyard. Some kids trampoline. You know, they lost my game. No, I'm kidding. We'll find out whose it is. But y'all got a treat tonight. Going through Tik Tok a while back, and you know, we all look at all things Bigfoot, right? And that's how I got this started. Hey, Alan. And so there's a young lady had done a few videos. It kept popping up, and she works for the Expedition Bigfoot Museum, and it's in the Blue Ridge, Georgia area. I've talked to some of y'all. Some of y'all have actually been there, and the sound and everything's good. So hey, Mark. Hey, Billy. So Amanda started TikTok just as, you know, because she had people coming in and mentioning TikTok, and we'll let her tell how it blew up on her. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank y'all, Bobby. All right, we're going to bring her in. We're not going to waste any time. We already got 25 people in the chat. So y'all, here's the Bigfoot lady, Amanda Stowers. How you doing, Amanda?
I'm good, Roger. How are you, sir?
Doing good. You can make me feel old. Call me sir, but I appreciate that. It's Mark.
It's part of it. It's part of being in the South, right?
Hey, I've had more people get mad at me for being nice than I have the other way. You know, I was raised the same way. Yes, sir. No, sir. Ma'am. Opening doors. So everybody scrolling across the bottom here, I've got her name and AKA the Bigfoot lady on TikTok. It's also, you also have a Facebook page, right?
Yes, I got the same name on multiple social medias. I got an Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and I'm starting to put some of my TikToks up on YouTube Shorts. So those are kind of my few, but mainly the TikTok right now.
Well, I've got some questions, but we'll get started.
All right.
How the TikTok thing? I'm 53 years old. I've done Facebook and tried Instagram and all that, and of course YouTube now. I got on TikTok just watching Bigfoot stuff because Jeremiah Byron, Bigfoot Society, putting stuff on there. So I was going watching some of that, and that's how I found you. And tell everybody how that got started, if you will.
So working at the Bigfoot Museum, I had a lot of people one is like, hey, have you seen this video yet? Or something like that would pop up, and they would want to show it to me, or they would have audio that they had actually personally recorded, but they had saved it on their TikTok. And I was like, oh yeah, you got to send that to me. That's awesome. I want to share it with our owner, the David Becerra. And I was like, I don't have a TikTok. I was like, well, you know what? I should finally just break down and join the modern era and get a TikTok, because I had just started a Facebook and Instagram for my Bigfoot stuff, something separate from my personal, I should say. And anyway, I just decided, for a whim, I would just make a few memes, a couple of little short little videos. I'm a terrible internet connoisseur, so I'm all the time on there doing the same thing, watching Bigfoot videos. And I've had a few of them blow up. I think my big one right now has almost 500,000 views, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. And so, yeah, it just kind of blew up, and I'm still just running with it, trying to figure out where I'm going with it and just enjoying it. And it's been a fun ride. I've met a lot of great people already, such as yourself. Shout out to Jeremiah out there. And shoot, the other guy that's up there in Scott Carpenter's area. I can't remember your name, but I know
Harley.
Harley, yes, Harley.
Yep.
Yeah, shout out to you guys.
I know, I've been through a little bit of that myself. I heard somebody on a podcast, and it had kept this in all these years, and then I finally reached out and didn't know there was such a thing as Bigfoot podcasts and museums and all this, because back in my day you couldn't talk about this stuff. Mm-hmm. But now with the TV shows, there's several of them, and the YouTube channels, and you guys, it makes people feel more comfortable about telling their stories. And I, for one, is I do talk to people about their encounters, but I try to add a little bit of the entertainment side of it too, because I believe it's been important, especially to people like me that had an encounter way back and we couldn't share. Now, if me and my wife go to, stop in at the museum, I wouldn't have any trouble sharing with you. And I'm sure, you had some stories.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So one question I have.
Yes.
Do you have people come in and they're believers, they are the knowers, and then there's ones that probably just tagging along because a family member's there and they don't have an idea one way or another? Do any of those leave with like, maybe this could be something to this? Do you see?
Actually, yeah. You'd be surprised on it. And I have no problem, and the owners, I should say, also have no problem as well. People who want to come in, they're, like I said, they're not necessarily into the subject matter. They're just there for a good time, something fun to do. And I always leave with the clip. It's like, hey, did you guys enjoy the museum? They're like, yeah, we thought it was cool. It's like, hey, how many times can you say you've been to a Bigfoot museum, right? And so anyway, I always ask, well, maybe hopefully we left you with something to think about. And I'd be surprised. A lot of people was like, actually, yeah, that was a lot more in depth than I thought it was, or there was a lot more information than I thought there was out there.
Well, the first thing people ask, all of us, is where's the evidence? Well, I can't have a 50-year conversation in 3 to 5 minutes, right? There's a lot of stuff out there, and you have the owner, and y'all have pulled it in from everywhere and kind of condensed it down to some of the high points. I imagine I've never been there. We're going to visit Greg, who's with Woodwalkers. Everybody knows him. I went to visit him in Alabama yesterday. And he said he's been there before, maybe more than once, a few years ago. And I think he's friends with the owner on Facebook. He was showing me.
Probably is.
Yeah. So anyway, it's I love stuff like that. But I have a different reason, of course, because it those people that leave your spot and then you talk to them, and then if you say I was on Bigfoot Society, give it a listen. They listen to that, and then they may start opening up, and I think some of these shows, even though we're small, some of the guests we have on, it's therapy. I know it was therapy for me.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't know where we start. I know you're close to a tourist destination in Helen, right?
Kind of, yeah.
But kind of close.
Probably about, I'd say 40. Well, let me rephrase. Where it takes about an hour and a half to get there from here because we're in the wilderness. You got to go up, down, and around. There's no real straight shot to get there because there is national forest and true wilderness still here. So there's not any roads through there.
It's a beautiful area. I'm going to tell you how we found it.
All right.
So Facebook usually puts destinations out there, and I had seen Helen. Is it Helen or Helena? Helen?
Just Helen. No A on the end.
Just Helen. Okay. So 2020, My wife and I got married in March, and actually the weekend that everything blew up.
Oh, gracious.
Yes, the weekend we didn't get to finish our honeymoon. Well, we would get out and ride around and make a day trip, not get out, around people. And we would get out in the woods or whatever. Well, we were driving one day. Well, we watched a movie called Blue Ridge, and it was filmed over there in Clayton and the surrounding areas in October. And the trees, just beautiful colors or whatever. So we were curious, and that's how we found the area.
In the fall.
It's beautiful. So and the reason I'm saying that, y'all, everybody in chat, if you have a chance to visit that area of Georgia, I've been all over this country, and I don't know of many. It's my top 3 of beautiful places. And especially if you can go in October and you can see the Chattahoochee River and stop in and see Amanda. Because but that's, I was going to do a commercial for you. But anyway, I know everybody's thinking, you have people come in. We'll talk about the museum first. What are some of your favorite displays there that spurs maybe the most conversation?
Oh man. So some of the favorite one, of course, is right from the get-go. As soon as you walk into the main part of the museum, David has a huge display of a lot of the Native American legends. And so you start there and, puts it right into perspective as soon as you walk in that, Bigfoot isn't a recent thing.
Exactly.
It's just been a big thing for hundreds to thousands of years, long before the term Bigfoot became a thing. And then from there, of course, you have all the cast and different ones. But from there, some of my favorite stuff that he put in, besides the Native American stuff, is that he put in an audio station where you can actually put on headphones and listen to the Sierra sounds. And Ron Moorhead talking about it and stuff. And so then you get right into the next part that, these aren't dumb monkeys, for lack of a better term. These are very, very intelligent beings. They have a language. So, you move right into that, and, we got all kinds of other little fun things. And then the next big thing for me, obviously, is the eyewitness testimonies, because without that, you wouldn't have any stories at all to share. And the importance of how these beings don't all look alike. There's tons and tons of different pictures on the wall of different artist renditions of witness sketches. And, people automatically think, they all look the same, but just like people, they don't all look the same. So then that takes you into, again, to something even deeper than, again, just the big dumb ape theory.
And that's one reason you caught my attention, because you answer questions and you talk about theories. And my big thing is, as humans, we only truly know what we experience. We can read about things and we can watch whatever, and somebody can show us something. But so a lot of people they're different groups, you probably know this, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
That believe different things. But my thing is, I try to look at the big picture and know, well, they might look like this in one part of the country. They may look like this in another part of the country. They may act like this. So all I know for a fact is pretty much how they walk uphill, because I saw it.
Yeah.
Now, this other stuff, we can talk about it, and I can just give my opinion. That's it, because I don't know. So exactly. I try to bring everybody together. Wait a minute, you could be right, and you could be right over here. Let's quit fighting.
Exactly. That's what drives me so crazy in the quote unquote Bigfoot community, is you have these different sides, and they're like, oh, you're crazy, I don't want nothing to do with you. Oh, why don't you open your eyes and see that? It's like, just stop being bullies, come together. And if you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, you're never going to put it together. So
exactly right. Yeah. And if you don't communicate, and it's okay. I started this, I don't know, about a year ago, but I started my own about 7-8 months ago. But I started digging like you have. And I've got some ideas where um, that there might be a group that may be just flesh and blood, and I don't mean this bat dumb monkeys, right?
Yep,
But
yep.
then there may be some that are a little more advanced that can do a little bit more, and
Mhm.
there's so many different ways to look at this.
Oh
And
yeah.
if Amanda, if somebody comes in and like and tells you something wild right off the bat, and you're like, and they see that reaction from you, you may miss out on one of the greatest pieces of that puzzle you're talking about ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, I've had everything. People share encounters and experiences of anything from just, they saw, to them, a lost ape, a wild man, a missing link. And I've had encounters of shared with me of just, the complete opposite end. This was a spiritual alien being from another world that just, transformed their life.
Right.
And so, it goes both ways. And again, like you said, you do have to, I one especially have to watch my face because I'm one that wears it right out the bat. And whenever people start, sharing something with me and it's just so out there, I'm just so excited that I'm just like, I have to kind of hold myself together. Like, listening to them, really taking in the information instead of just in the back of my mind going, oh my God, nobody else is going to believe this story. This is so crazy. I can't wait to write this down and,
Right.
And share this information with David and other people, just, you got to learn how to work with your people.
Well, here, if you think about it, we've had experiences. I went 35 years without anything happening. Got introduced back into this stuff in 2020. The past year, I found footprints in one spot, and some maybes in some other spots with high probability that I think. But I always get people. I've been lucky enough to become friends with a lot of researchers, that have been doing this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even with sounds, I've caught sounds a couple of times and had people analyze it for me or whatever. And what I've come to realize is that we're all different too. You almost said that earlier. You might have said it. We're all different. We may have different abilities, and what I mean by that is, once I found out that the see in the spectrum here, but there's all these other light spectrums out here that we can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if the person walks in and is telling you the story can see 4 down, and just so happens that light's reflecting off of that being, right? So,
exactly.
Or ghosts. What if they're in this light spectrum?
Yeah, that's one of my many personal theories about why people people tease, like the blob squatches and stuff in pictures. I personally think that there might be, like you said, whether they're either on a different light spectrum or a different frequency, a different spiritual level. I'm not sure what terminology to use there, but anyway, that maybe that particular person is able to see the being that other people can't in this photo, or when they were actually there witnessing and seeing something. So just we might have these different abilities, I think that these beings can also have the same things as well.
Right. And I started realizing this. So here's what I tell people when they send me pictures, and I can't now. Sometimes I can, but and I'll look and I'm like, and I'll tell them I'm not good at this part. It's not on you. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I have people that I can forward it to and get you in touch with. And that way, when you start looking at it like that, because I've seen things, one of the first times my wife and I went, sat outside, not Bigfoot hunting, but, at a place where we'd had some things happen. A couple hours after we were there, an orb come up in a tree not 20 yards away from us, and it lasted 20 something minutes, and it was changing sizes. It was incredible. But I was new at this. Now, if it happened tonight, I would get out a camera phone or something, and try to document it, right? But back then, we were just so in awe, and I was backing the truck up, getting different, views of it. So then I started realizing, all right, we saw this together, but nobody's going to believe this. I don't have proof of it, right? So then I'm like, well, how can I sit here and tell you a ghost story that happened to me, seeing an orb and seeing these different things, UFO when I was like 17? I can't laugh at anybody. I can't doubt anybody.
Yep.
So I sit and listen and let them get it out. I know there's probably been some pretty wild ones. What has been one of the most terrifying ones you've heard?
Oh man,
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. Oh, that's a good one. First one that comes to mind is okay, there's two that come to mind. The first one was one that I took from a gentleman since I've been back to the museum. And he shot he actually was there in Tennessee, and he had a face-to-face with a Sasquatch, and they were, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's that way where you are, but here sometimes, there's trash pits out in the woods where people used to just dump all their trash. So him and his buddies had went to go scrap at this trash pit, and there was a Bigfoot on the other side of it. It actually ran through the trash pit towards them. He had a sidearm, and he offloaded all 6 rounds directly into the chest of this thing. Didn't even touch it.
Didn't hurt it.
Yeah.
Well,
and the second one that's terrifying that I can think of, David actually took this report, but he's always shared it again. And this was actually happened in Vietnam. And a lot of people in the Bigfoot community might have heard of rock apes or the stone apes over in the area that a lot of our soldiers recall from whenever they were over there during that wartime period. But this particular group was walking through, doing their jungle patrols or something, and they were being stalked by these rock apes. And the one of the soldiers decided to, pop off some shots at them. And I might be missing some details here, but the main thing is they all camped down at night around the campfire. And unfortunately, whenever they woke up the next morning, the guy who had popped off the shot at the rock ape was very much unalived. He was missing his head.
Well,
and nobody remembered hearing a thing.
Well, that's terrifying. But the people that we know, I don't know if you've ever heard of Kumbo Baker. He's been investigating for decades. He lives down here in the Southeast, and that's one thing he says, that they will take and remove the head. So
this one was twisted off.
Oh man, and it takes strength. Oh god,
exactly.
Well, I'm gonna take a stab here. Do y'all probably have the Davy Crockett or Daniel Boone story? I can't remember which one it is.
Believe it or not, actually no. And the only reason I mentioned that is because I just had a customer ask me about that last week. But David does have a really good display on the Teddy Roosevelt part, where Teddy Roosevelt had mentions of stories of wild men, or I forget what the term he used, but in his journals back when he was a trapper, long before he became got into politics and became president.
Well, so now I don't think I've read that account. So he had encounters or an encounter?
To my knowledge, no.
But he heard stories.
The one I'm familiar with, yes. And the one that's displayed in the museum is referred to as the Bauman story. The gentleman's last name was Bauman. And they were trapping beaver, and it was just 2 of them. And same thing, they were hearing the creature and it was terrorizing them. They shooting at it and it was just bothering them for a couple of days. Bauman went off to go check the beaver traps and came back, and his buddy was unalived, and it scared him so bad he ran off. And so that was the one that Teddy Roosevelt wrote down in his journals.
And y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Daniel Boone? There's an account where I think he wrote it down where I think it was his son. They were hunting. Of course, back then you had the single shot rifles, and the son shot in the chest, like you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. Then he shot this creature in the head, and what happened? It killed it. But he was curious. He cut it open. He said the breastplate was really, really thick, abnormally large, and wider than ours. And I think it was after them. Y'all have to check into that. But yeah, that's a good one to check into also.
I've heard it in like little clips here and there, so I don't know much of any details at all, other than there's some connection somewhere between either Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett. I think Daniel Boone.
Okay.
So,
and and we hear so many of these stories now that I'm doing this and have a full-time job, and it's hard to. You're so lucky. Jeremiah said you have the best job ever. You can talk about.
I've heard that a lot, and I will admit I am super blessed. I definitely have one of the best jobs ever.
Are there? Now I'm not going to ask you any specifics as far as names or anything like that. But this happens to me locally. Like they'll look around and they're like, "Hey, come here. I got something to tell you." Do you have people tell you stories in confidence that you can't like tell their name and all that, and just
absolutely
just to get it off their chest? Like local stories.
Oh yeah, all the time, and David can attest to this as well, because when I first started working there in 2019, he worked with me directly on training me there at the museum, and he was telling me different things to watch out for, like, hey, that person I think has a story, like the body language, little things like that. And so we get all the time people come in, just either with their families or, just there they just want to check out the museum, see what it's all about. One, probably like me, wanting to make sure, if it was something legit and not something, hokey, making fun of it. Anyhow, and a lot of times they'll come back out of the museum after they've toured the museum, and they'll come up to you at the counter and be like, so what do you think about all this? And I'll be like, I think it's 100% legit. I've had experiences, the owners have. I've talked to way too many people here. We've got this whole building full of evidence, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. Oh yeah, 100% believe that there is something to all of this. And then they'll go, well, I haven't told a lot of people about this, but back in the 80s or whatever, I was hunting and saw something. They'll go off into their story. Or, I'll share a little bit about what I experienced and get that back and forth a little bit. And then a lot of people will finally, even like right as they're going out the door, or sometimes people won't even say anything. And I can just kind of overhear the conversation that they might be having. Like they're pointing at one of the maps. It's like, wasn't that where we were at when that happened? And it's like, I won't go up to them when they don't want to, but
Wendell has a question here. Where is the museum actually located?
Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum, is located in Cherry Log, Georgia, just between Ellijay and Blue Ridge, Georgia. Okay. So Blue Ridge is a really big tourist town, or an up-and-coming tourist town in the North Georgia mountains, and it's just outside of the town there. So
it's going to be the next Gatlinburg.
Technically, it's in Cherry Log, so
it's going to be the next Gatlinburg. I hate it because everybody that comes back, it kind of reminded me, me being the age I am. I remember Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg when it was like what y'all have now, and it's good and bad. But so
I agree. It's good and bad. I grew up here, so it does make me a little sad sometimes to see how much it's grown up. But I do see the good that it's bringing in at the same time. So, it's kind of a catch-22 there. So, you can either hate on it or just learn to love it and grow with it and, reap the benefits out of it,
right.
From having all this extra stuff in your area now.
So let's back up a little bit. Have you had an encounter? Have you had some kind of experience that made you think about the subject? Is that what you said?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
2 seconds. I got to plug my laptop in.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, I thought I heard you say that.
Yeah, sorry about
wait a
that.
minute.
I thought I had it plugged in and my battery light just started.
Well, y'all, what happened before the show? We're laid back here, but I love the stories, and I don't want to bombard you with questions, but
No, you're good.
Before the show, I had a storm hit the house. I got a tree down. I've got limbs everywhere. I've got the trampolines in my backyard. My neighbor, he's got trees down, and on the other side of us, on both sides, there's nothing. I mean, so I don't know what that was that came through here, but anyway, and then I come in here, plug my laptop up, and it's like it's downloading something or upgrading or whatever. I'm like, oh no. Amanda had the same thing happen.
Yeah, I went to go get on, and all of a sudden my computer's like, you have like 7 updates. I'm like, really?
And it worked out. I mean,
it did.
But yeah, so if you'd like to tell us a little bit or about your encounters, I'd love to hear it. I know they would.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm in the same boat as you, Roger, where I didn't talk about this stuff a lot after it happened, because just stuff you just didn't talk about because you didn't want to be that person who was made fun of and ridiculed. I was already the weird girl in school anyway. So, why would I want to all of a sudden be the girl that saw Bigfoot? My first encounter and experience, I didn't actually have a visual sighting of the creature. So my brother and my cousin who were with me at the time actually did. So little backstory. I am, again said, born and raised here in the North Georgia mountains. My family is some of the first settlers here in the area from the early 1800s. And so we still have some of that property on my father's side of the family. And I was a teenager. I probably would have been about 15 or so at the time. And my brother would have been 12. And we were helping my father cut and haul firewood off of the property because that's all we had was wood heat. And where we were at on the property, there's a huge hay field and it runs by the creek. My uncle had just remarried. And so we had a new cousin. And there was a particular tree on the property that we referred to as the carving tree because generations of people had carved their name in it over the years. And it is this really cool, cool area. So we were like, hey, let's go take Kelsey over to the carving tree and put her name on it since she's family now. So my brother and I, we take her way out to the end of the field and go out into the woods. And it's probably, 50 yards into the tree line. And here in Southern Appalachia, you have these really big outcrops of rocks. And this particular tree was growing up beside that rock and growing up there. So there was actually a really big wallered out area underneath it where my brother and them had actually camped before and all kinds of stuff. And then, who knows what could have been denning down there. But anyway, I was actually up on top of the rock. Putting in, I think I'd found my name and was redoing it or something, and it's up on top. So my back was actually to the woods. My brother and my cousin were down below me, looking up kind of up towards me. So they were looking up into the woods, which would have been back behind me. And my brother down there is like, Amanda, we got to go. I was like, oh, I'm almost done. We'll go in a minute. And he said, no, we're going now. And he flips out his pocket knife and takes off running. And my cousin's already running. And so I'm like, oh, snap. I don't know what's going on. All this happened really, really quickly.
Right.
So I don't know what's happening, but I'm running too. in hindsight, of course, if it was a bear or a mountain lion or anything, running would have been the worst thing to do, but we were scared kids. As soon as I got to the tree line, which the tree line to the hayfield there, this creature let out the most god-awful roar, scream, howl. I don't know what it was, but it was literally the loudest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. The only thing that has come close to it is going to some of the heavy metal concerts that I've gone to with my husband. Just that power of that, where it just shakes your whole being. And it came out from behind me, so I kind of catched my ears like this and almost fell. And as I almost fell, I have this mental image still burned in my brain of my brother and my cousin running still through the hay, and all the birds flying up out of the hay because this thing let out this roar. Or that's what I assumed.
Yeah.
What was crazy is I'm running up and I catch my brother. Oh my God, what was that? What was that? He's like, I think it was Bigfoot. Because we'd already, watched some like Legend of Boggy Creek and other movies and shows and stuff like that. We get up to my dad and my uncle, and they're, what's going on? We're all flustered. My brother tells him what happened and what he saw. And he's like, oh, you kids saw the booger, huh?
Oh,
like,
man.
No big thing.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah. Okay. Y'all finally saw it. Okay.
Yeah. And so we went and told my grandmother, my father's mom, who actually grew up on that property, that story that night or one day later that week or something. But anyway, she said the exact same thing. Oh, you kids saw the booger, huh? Yeah, your Uncle Kerm ran into that thing back in the 50s and he wouldn't go back in there no more.
Wow. That would have been good information to have beforehand, right?
Exactly. That's what I told him. I was like, man, that would have been good to know. Because growing up, I'd always heard the term booger, and we used it very interchangeably. Right. It could have been anything that went bump in the night. The boogeyman, where I imagine the term came from, to anything, not necessarily just Bigfoot. So I always assumed it was just a ghost because, we have ghosts on that property too. Mm-hmm. So I just assumed that's all it was. I didn't realize, oh yeah, it's a Bigfoot. Good job. So
I heard the same thing.
I'm sorry.
I heard the same thing growing up, and I didn't know. I guess it covers a lot of different things, right? Mm-hmm. And I never dreamed, because growing up at my age, Bigfoot, Godzilla, and all that stuff was way away from us. You know what I mean? It's something you saw on TV and the movies. And I'd ask my dad one time, I said, Daddy, how far away is Japan? He said, it's a long ways. I said, can Godzilla swim here? And if as mean as he was to me sometimes, jokingly, I'm surprised he didn't say, oh yeah, he could be here in a couple hours, and scared me. But for my piece, he said, no, he won't never get here. But laughing about that, I've heard my grandma and I've heard people say booger. Mm-hmm. And I didn't put it together until I met the people from Alabama that I know now. Mm-hmm. And
I didn't really put it together too until after I started working at the Bigfoot Museum. I heard so many other people using that term, and I was like, and I thought, again, just it was an Appalachian thing, and it's everywhere, and a lot of people really use it just for Bigfoot.
That's funny. I mean, it's funny, not funny, because
it's funny. Not
I'm like
funny.
you. A lot of times when I'm terrified, I laugh.
I'm kind of in the same boat.
So, it's but and I don't mean to make light of it. When people know me, you don't know me, but it just, when something scares me like that, and then when I was scared of ghost stories. So if they started talking about boogers, I probably left. I probably would leave and go somewhere else. But wow. But did your brother was it act? Did he ever? I probably didn't. Did you ever say if it was acting aggressively or just checking y'all out, being curious?
It was kind of aggressive. It didn't do anything other than roar at us. Yeah. But he said its stance and the way it was looking. He said it had its arm up on one of the trees and it was kind of leaning out, so you only saw this part of it here. And he said it just kind of gave us this you're in my living room, you need to get out kind of look, you've done barked up the wrong tree, kids kind of look.
Did you ever go back?
I never did. No, I was one either too scared or I moved away out of home whenever I was 18. So I haven't been back to that property in a long time. And unfortunately, some of that has been subdivided now. So there's different homes there, and I don't know of anybody. So I
Well,
would
I
love
know
to,
driving
love
through
to
the
go back
area,
there now.
y'all, if the people that have never been in that area, I almost probably would ride next time, because there were so many pretty hollows and stuff going back in. I was watching everything but the road, and Heather was like, "Hey, keep your eyes on the road." I'm like, "Man,
Pay
it's
attention.
beautiful up in there." Like almost like there were some places that almost look like a different country
Mm-hmm.
in places. You see a little bit of it, and you're like, "Man, that reminds me of something I've seen on TV, before," but
Yeah.
not here. I love it, but yeah, and there's a group of people that's one county over here in Tennessee that lived with these things in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and on up, and they had never heard the term Bigfoot, because it's just as rural here as it is where you are. So they called them, as a family and as a community there in those hollows, they called them the big monkeys, because that's just the closest thing they could think of.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing we've talked about. You probably hear people come from different parts of the country that use different descriptive words or
Mm-hmm.
names for these things,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and we're all talking about the same thing probably.
Exactly. That's what's so crazy is that, between, not only us, the white settlers and the Native Americans, there's so many different names for these things.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them are talking about the same thing, but it's on two completely either opposite sides of the country or opposite sides of the world. And, they're still referring to the same thing for two people who have never met in their entire life.
Yeah. And I know you're like me. You probably go and look at these different stories and just the fact that there are cave drawings from thousands, whatever, hundreds or thousands of years ago. There's stories in almost every culture of these things, and it's amazing. Some of the theories. I mean, even in here in chat right now, there are people that have been doing this for so long. They have their different theories, and somebody posted a month and a half ago, maybe, and I never had heard this before, but the guy was like, "Look at Genesis 25:25."
Mm-hmm.
And I went and looked at it, and I was like, "Whoa!" He was born with red hair like a carpet, and what was his name?
Esau.
Esau, right? I never had heard that, so I went and read before and after, and if you really break it down and read it, it's confusing, but there you go. That's something that happened years ago, right?
On that, it's crazy, and I do lean more towards that just because I don't hide it. I am a Christian, and I look into those a lot, and you try to look at things from a biblical standpoint. And then, just, a little bit of everything. They talk about ghosts in the Bible. They talk about the possibilities of UFOs. You talk about the, biblically accurate angels. What kind of crazy alien things are those that they would have seen back then, So there's some stuff into it for sure.
Well, and then that's a good segue into this part of it. So you I don't know, different names, woo, high strangeness, whatever.
Yeah.
The portals, the theories of stepping in and out of portals, and the high energy draining of the battery. There's so much you can get into, and people look at you funny. And my last job I was driving people to doctor's appointments, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the same people, and all throughout life, the same people that will laugh at you talking about Bigfoot will, in the next breath, will tell you about a ghost that they used to have in their house, strange things that used to happen. They saw 3 UFOs when they were kids. All this other stuff is okay, but when you're talking about something that could be flesh and blood, I think it scares them
I think
because
so too. I really do. And just there, just the possibility that there is something else out there that's could possibly be more intelligent than us,
yes,
or just smart enough to stay away from modern things. And and you start pulling in some of these biblical narratives, you start pulling in some of these woo things into it. What's the word they use for it? Cognitive dissonance, which is a fancy term for if it doesn't fit into your narrative or your paradigm in your brain, what your brain has been programmed to think or know. Your brain automatically goes, I can't do that. I can't deal with that. Just, out of my way. Just push it away. Exactly. So interesting that you mentioned that, because there is actually a part 2 to that particular Bigfoot encounter that I had. So, the biggest thing that I remember about that experience was the roar of how loud that was. Unfortunately, life happens, and my brother and I have gone, in separate ways. And so, we see each other on the holidays and things like that, but, we haven't really, talked about, this exact experience in detail until just this past year when I started working back at the Bigfoot Museum. And I finally cornered him and said, hey, let's talk about this, because, I work at the Bigfoot Museum now. So I'm sharing this. I want to make sure that I have all my ducks in a row, that I am sharing, all the little details, exactly how you remember it and how I remember it. Because, I just heard the thing. You were the one who actually saw it. So I want to make sure that, I'm remembering everything right. What was the crazy thing about it is him and my cousin, they didn't hear a darn thing. I was the only one who heard that. So I was like, I started looking at it. I was like, was I zapped? Is that what happened to me? And so my brother remembers specifically that thing. I said he was leaning out of the tree and it was looking at us, giving us that, hey, y'all need to get out of here. But this is broad daylight. And this creature had glowing red eyes, which we've heard so many times from other witnesses about them having glowing eyes. And then my brother says it and is like, I don't remember those details. I don't remember you telling me about these before. And he actually shared with me that he went back up there. Him and another cousin went back up there to go hunt this thing down like teenage boys do. And it stalked them in the barn. It was camping in the barn, and it was pacing the barn, and they could hear it like coming up to the wood and go, making the sniffing sound, smelling them out. And it scared them off that they didn't go hunting it for it anymore. And my brother, once he became an adult, he was out hunting in that area, and he went way on up past the carving tree, way on up further up into the creek. And he said he came up to this massive, massive rock wall. He said it looked like a freaking skyscraper in the woods. And he saw it. He's just like, it was just so eerie. And he just really had this like, I don't need to be here kind of feeling about it. Right. And he turned around and left, which then made me think about him as well. So, like you said, it goes into like, some of the portal stuff. You hear all these stories about from Native Americans, these things just walked right into the cliff wall and it was gone. Or, it walked behind this tree and then it was gone. And so again,
it sounds crazy, but there's people that I know and trust that have found trackways that disappear in the middle of a field, nothing around. The last track, and they're just gone. Many
witnesses that have had the exact same thing. David and I, we talked to a priest one time. A priest. He of course, has no reason to lie. And this was in the 1950s, before when he experienced that the trackway just disappeared. And that was long before Bigfoot became common. He was, following a trackway of these massive tracks. They were very human-like. So he was trying to figure out what it was. And then it just stopped, turned off the switch.
That's not natural.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not. What I try to do is, if I'm, sitting around thinking about something I've heard or whatever, if I can look and do a little research and find something in nature, it kind of explains it a little bit. But that's one of the things that it's a dead end, just like the trackway is, because if there's no place for it to go that we can see, then I can't wrap my head around it. But you just said something about hearing the sound. I've had it hit me before, and it's very weird feeling the sound. Now, if I'm in a football stadium or I'm in a concert like you're talking about, we're supposed to, right?
Yeah.
But something like that, just a few weeks ago, we were in South Alabama, and we caught some howls. And I don't know if you saw the short I did. My wife and I was walking, and these screams were so loud, and I've heard them before. I knew what they were immediately, but there was a guy about 50 yards away from me up the hill, and these things were on the other side of him, so he was in between us. And when the second one answered back, I knew. I'm like, uh-oh.
You're like, uh-oh, time to go.
So now they're kind of going crazy. Well, Woodwalkers interviewed him, and I was on the show with him a week later. And he said, Amanda, now, when you catch it on the phone and you can hear it, it's got to be loud. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't pick up the sounds. He told us, he said, I never heard that.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, wait a minute, you were between me and them. How did you not hear that? I think he was so scared, Amanda, because he had a growl at him right there close by. I think he was so scared that he shut it out somehow. I don't know if he was panicking.
I 100% believe that, which that's actually a perfect segue into my second experience, which I actually had filed back in my brain and forgotten about. So I've had tons and tons of obscure paranormal-esque type stuff happen to me in my life. So something weird happens, I just kind of file it back and kind of forget about it for a little while. So actually, when I was working at the Bigfoot Museum the first time in 2019, somebody was talking about something, and it like somebody just flipped a switch, and I was like, and I just remembered this thing that had happened to me, and it had to have been probably around the same time-ish whenever the other experience happened. I don't exactly remember. But anyway, we were actually at my parents' house, my mom and dad, and this would have probably been, say 10 miles as the crow flies, as they say, from where the other property in that experience happened. And we were, playing in the driveway. We had a big old long driveway, and us and all the neighbor kids, my cousins, we all lived right there in the holler, so that everybody came over to our place to play. So we were at in the trees playing and doing things, and my brothers had already jumped down off the embankment and got on the driveway, and I guess they were going to ride their bikes or something. And I mentioned that it was fall and that the leaves were very, very crunchy, and it was again daylight, and all this happened within just a few seconds. I hear something coming up behind me really fast in the leaves crunching. It was enough for me to make me turn around and come back and kind of jump, like, I was fixing to get jumped by something.
Right.
Was it a deer? What was it coming at me? Honest to goodness, Roger, I don't know what this thing was. And somebody mentioned it in another podcast interview. I wish I had that notebook with me to write down. I turn around, and there's this thing laying there in the leaves, laying flat on its stomach, arms stretched out wide, head down, and its mouth wide open, like a bearskin rug. That's why I refer to it as this bearskin rug creature, because that's the first thing that came to mind is like, am I looking at a bear? What am I looking at?
Yeah.
And I mentioned the leaves and the color of the leaves because from the waist back, I couldn't see anything. It was like it was invisible, like it had just blended into the leaves. And where its arms was stretched out, I could only see up to like right here on it. And it was just this thing was looking at me. And I hear my brothers and the other kids down here going, "Hey, Amanda, come on, look, let's go." I turn and I look. And I look back at that, and that thing is gone. It just happened that fast. And
so you could see half of it,
but not all of it. Exactly.
Wow.
And David and myself have both taken those kind of reports of where people only see like a half of a Bigfoot, or it's translucent, like, or they just see shift out of form, all kinds of things. So it's not an uncommon experience. And I didn't remember that. And it was crazy because once I did remember that, I had nightmares for like weeks after that, remembering this incident, remembering this happened. And I had to come to terms with it. I was like, was this just a bad dream that I had? Or did this actually happen to me? I'm like, no, that actually happened to me. And I remember it as just as vividly as anything else.
And when you see something like that, people, you armchair researchers, and you should have done this, you should have done that, or whatever. Anytime that you see something that's not supposed to exist, or maybe somewhere in another country, or it's so weird, and people will say, well, the first thing I noticed, and they've heard me say this a lot, well, the first thing you notice is all of it, and it scrambles you. You're like, you don't know where to look first.
Exactly.
And so the fact that you couldn't see half of it, that goes into we talk about the other dimensions or portals or whatever. And, I've had experiences. They all know I've had experiences with ghosts, UFOs, paranormal stuff. And it wasn't every day, thank God, or I would have went crazy. And
I feel you with that.
You know what I mean? So when something happens, to me, it's like, and I tell the story from 15 years ago or whatever, it's nothing like being there that first time it happened, but see, that's probably why we're like, where you're digging for answers, right? You're doing these videos on TikTok and you're asking good questions and bringing up good points, and it's seeing stuff like that, I think that brings that along. Has your family, anybody in your family, been the same way with the extra?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So especially the women in my family, on my mother's side especially, they all have a bit of a sixth sense. My mom not as much, but my grandma, boy, can she share some stories of like either having a dream and then it happened, or seeing a ghost or a spirit. And then, just growing up in the church, like I did, my great grandpa was actually the preacher and the founder of the church that I grew up in. So, we were there all the time, and they were, talking about evil spirits and casting out demons and seeing angels. Like I can remember seeing angels at the pulpit when I was a kid at church. And I also remember seeing demons getting cast out.
Was it scary? Well,
yeah, it was scary.
Okay, this is a question. This sounds random, but this is a question we have.
Yes.
Go ahead and answer that first.
Yeah, I have not been hit by lightning, not that I can ever remember anyways. But fun fact, my grandma, the one I was just talking about, she was. But again, her abilities were also ones she had gotten from her mom and her mom and her mom going on back.
Right.
And so my two greats grandma was actually considered a granny witch, if you ever know what that term is here in Appalachia.
No.
Even though if you were a Christian woman, you were the person who could go out into the woods and you knew exactly what herb to pick. You knew exactly what to pray over this person. They were the person, if you had something wrong with you, if you had something, you were sick or anything like that, that was the person that you went to get that taken care of. Or they were the person who had premonitions about things. God told me that, don't go out there, this night, something bad might happen to you. I had a dream about it. Don't go do that.
So it's similar to,
I think that I might have inherited some of that just because it's just always been a part of me. When I was little, I would see ghosts in my room, dark shadows. My mom would have me sleep with the Bible under my pillow. And, I've just always had kind of a sixth sense for this kind of stuff. So I don't know. That's probably a good part of it.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you, we're on the same page because I've had so many strange things happen over the years that you kind of suppress that at times, and there at one point in my life, it got so bad, I just had to pray and say, God, please take this off me. I don't want it. I don't like it. I don't have anything to do with this. And so, and it's eased up for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm in a place that's really heavy and like an old hotel out in Arkansas or Wyoming, when I walk in, or even a house here, I can
Mm-hmm.
walk in and I can tell I do not want to be there. There's an energy or a darkness or a heaviness about it.
Oh yeah.
And so one of our friends out in Oklahoma, we got a few here, Pyro's here, but Pyro says the Cherokee had a name for that, translate to make me forget. And Pyro, I don't know if you said it or Yohola said it. That's one of the things I learned when they talk about medicine. The medicine
Mm-hmm.
that it's kind of the same thing. It's not like medicine. It's an ability, like more or less.
Yeah.
He can correct me, if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah.
But
My grandpa on my dad's side of the family, he had the ability to take away fire. For if anybody got like sunburnt or if they got really bad like burnt or something like that, he could actually take away and heal the burn from it. It was some kind of, and they were actually Native American on that side of the family, so he probably what he got that ability from.
well, I mean, sounds like we have similar backgrounds, and we're okay. How did the job come about? Did you seek this out, or
A little
how
of
did you?
both. So I'll start from the beginning. So the museum opened in 2016, and my hubby and I we had moved out of state for a while. He had gotten a job in the oil fields in North Dakota, and we had actually just moved back about the same time that the Bigfoot Museum opened. And we were seeing the growth there in North Georgia, and we're just like, a Bigfoot Museum? And I was so worried because I'm so into this subject matter, and I love the obscure and the paranormal and these types of subject matters. And I was so worried that it was going to be something really, really corny, with these animatronics and
Right,
things like that, just going to be making fun of it.
right.
And I had gotten a job, and I followed the museum on Facebook just so I could keep up with it and see what it was about. And I kind of noticed, he was like, okay, they're doing some cool things. He's posting some cool, stories and different things. And then I saw that they had gotten Bob to
Sorry.
come and be a guest at the museum. And I was like, Gimlin, like Gimlin, Patterson Gimlin? Okay, I've got to get there because, how many, even if the museum is corny, how often, would I get a chance to meet somebody like that?
Right.
And so I went and I saw it. Me and my friend went. I got to meet Mr. Gimlin, and I took a look at the museum, and just is like, it was the exact opposite of what I had thought it would be. It was 100% factual base. The day that I was there was, multiple researchers there, and everybody was talking and sharing stories. And I got to sharing a little bit of my encounter with somebody there behind the counter. And they said, you need to go talk to David. And so I hung out for a little while, and I met David, and I shared my little bit of my story with him. And we got to talking, and then time passed. A couple years went by, and I was in a position where I didn't have work at the time. And let me start over. So I'd actually been in the museum a couple of times between that and when I met David the first time, and that. So he recognized me whenever I would see him out and about, or vice versa. So I saw where they had posted a job opening for a museum interpreter, and I saw that, and I was like, pick me. So same thing. I had computer issues. I couldn't get my resume sent over to them, all this stuff. And I reached out to them on Facebook. I was like, okay, I know this is completely unprofessional, but here it is. And they met me. I got to go in and do an interview, and a week later, I got the phone call. David called me and said, I got the job. And I was like, oh my God, is this a dream? And so, yeah, and I worked there for about a year and a half. from 2019 to 2020. And then, unfortunately, the thing that shut down the whole world happened.
Yeah.
And my hubby lost his job, unfortunately, due to that. And he got his job back in the oil fields in North Dakota again. And so I followed him back up there. I was really sad to leave the museum, but we were doing what we had to do. And several years later, we're back here in Georgia, and I've
Back
been so
home.
blessed. They're like, hey, when are you actually, David kept calling me, saying, hey, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? Are you moving back yet? I'm like, I'm trying, I promise. And so, yeah, I've been back about a year and a half again now at this time.
So if you're not at the museum and you're out, and you hear somebody kind of talking about the subject, do you do like I do? Hey, I'm nice to meet you. I'm Roger. Have you ever heard like conversations in passing, or do you talk about it outside the museum?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's a little of both. Sometimes I'm just like, honestly, it sounds terrible. I was like, I'm just not in the mood.
I know.
I'm gonna put some of that in the back burner for a little while.
It can get to be too much.
It could be too much. Exactly. I was like, okay, I just got to be normal every day, going to the grocery store, Amanda, today. And then, a lot of times, especially it's because when I'm leaving work, I'll go to the store and I'm wearing my shirt, and people ask me about it, and, I'll bring up the conversation. I've actually got some good reports, just, like I said, in the stores. And, so one of my favorites that I got to talking to somebody outside of work. I was actually visiting my best friend up in Washington State. Shout out to Ashley if you're watching. And I saw a guy in Costco, and he had on a Bigfoot shirt. I complimented on it. I was like, "Hey, cool shirt," And he said something about, and he had an encounter, and I was like, "Yeah, I so have I." Or I was probably gonna say, "Oh," I said, "I'm a knower." He said, "So what are you? Do you believe?" He's like, "Oh, I know." And he's like, "Oh, really? Me too." And so, just little quips like that sometimes will come up, and I'll start the conversation.
And
so
and I sometimes I'll wear, the Bigfoot hat, or we have some shirts or whatever. But you're right. So a lot of times it's not that you do. There sometimes it's I've done so many shows, or I've had so many good guests, and I get to thinking I can't shut it off. So it wears me down at times, and I have to make myself get away. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I actually just took the month of April off from doing any interviews and stuff like that, just because I was like, whoa, this is getting to be a little bit much. I just need a mental break to take care of some stuff outside of all of this, to take care of it. So yeah, you got to take care of yourself in all of this as well.
Right.
Because
I've actually I've gotten sick. I think maybe because I was doing too much, and because I love it. I mean, I don't make anything off of this. It's just, it's to me, whether you find a little bit of evidence, or talk to somebody and hear these stories, it just makes me feel better. That I don't know how to explain it. It's just, it's like a connection. I mean, there's a lot of people in chat right here that I've met one time, or maybe never met, but you feel a connection to them because of similar things. And that's why they're here. They're not here for me. They're here to listen to the stories, that, and I know you, okay, let me ask you this. So when's the book coming out?
Oh, when's the book coming out? No time soon, which is actually funny. My husband and my friend, they tease me all the time. It's like, you should do something. You're all the time putting these little quips out there. You should make a book about it or do so. It's like, there's so many other people out there doing that. I don't know, maybe I have imposter syndrome or something where I don't feel worthy, I guess. I don't know. But at the same time, I'm also like, you know what? Why not? So I am in the back burner working on TikTok. I'm going to start a Bigfoot 101 or a Bigfoot facts series, because since those seem to be kind of what people who are willing to follow me. I have over 4,000 followers on TikTok now. They're wanting that information. Like, oh, we want more. So I'm like, okay, I enjoy sharing this at work and everything, and like here on interviews like this. So let me share little Bigfoot facts with the world on there, because everybody I don't know what's going on, but there's like a shift in the whole paradigm. Everybody's thinking is starting to be a whole lot more open about a lot of the crazy things that are going on in the world, not necessarily just Bigfoot, but people are wanting to eat up this information. So I'm like, well, maybe I am a that's my husband.
Well, here's
Sorry. That threw
no,
me
you're
off.
good. He's made a few comments. I figured it out. He was talking about the feedback he can hear.
Oh yeah, I have the comments turned off because I'm so ADD. It would keep me completely distracted.
Well, here's the way it is right now. You have certain shows that we're on. You have certain shows that are on. You have YouTube. You have some of the bigger YouTube channels, but there's a lot of us little channels, and there's a lot of what I've noticed. There's a lot of pockets of people around the country, and there are people that are the knowers. There are people that live with these things, basically in the same hollow, right?
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to get to know some of them. They're good friends. There's a lot of researchers out there that have a lot of information that they haven't really released, and you can find them if you dig. You can find them in these, shows from 5 years ago or whatever. And it's a small one. They may have 5,000 followers or subs, or 1,200 or whatever. But there's a lot, and that's another thing too. It's all spread out.
It is.
So if you do something like that, if you condense it down into a book, I mean, I write some. I like write fiction. I've got a few inspirational stories, but I've never made anything off of writing, and I pretty much know if I write something, I'm probably not going to. But it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Definitely.
I know a lot of people are, Amanda, come on, you need to write a book. When you're ready, you'll know it.
Exactly. He said, the Lord will show me whenever it's time, for sure. Just like with a lot of other things.
Have you ever got to go out for a couple nights and do a little, we say research, but like go out and camp and see if you hear something or whatever?
Yeah, go out and go squatching, as they say. Actually, no. To be honest, I don't go out and do any, quote unquote field research on purpose. Right. When I'm out in the woods, when we're going for hikes, of course I'm scanning. Of course I'm looking down and looking up. Like you, I've found some stuff, that maybe it's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, or like, oh, there's a big X over there. I need to go this way around the trail or turn around and come back. And but I don't do it on purpose, only because I don't want these things to follow me home. There are too many stories about these beings becoming attached to you. And I've been going through a really good spell where, I haven't had a lot of, spooky stuff happening. I haven't had boogers, at night. So I'm trying to keep it that way a little bit, if I can. Trust me, the want to is kind of there, but I'll admit, honestly, I'm a little scared. Well, because I've already had enough experiences of my own, not asking for them. What would happen if I went out there purposely looking for them?
Well, that's the perfect answer, because when people they'll ask me, hey, come with us and go to the old house. We're going to do some paranormal. Nope. Because the exact same reason. I don't want anything to follow me home. I'm scared. I don't want to mess with that stuff. And basically, like when we go out, and it's not really, we're not professional at all. We do the same thing. We may go camping or go walking, go hiking, for like a half a day or whatever. But you're right. You're always scanning. And the thing is, I've heard that, that's probably one of the best tactics anyway.
It is, yeah.
You just go enjoy yourself, be calm or whatever. If something happens, it happens. But so I got to ask this question.
No, you're good.
Am I going to ask this question or not? So I saw a display in y'all's museum online, and it was a long feces.
Oh, yes.
So what is, if you want to, if you don't have to, what is
I
the
don't
story?
mind a bit. That
Okay, what's the
is
story?
probably one of the number one attractions there, just from, again, people posting it online and pictures of it. Everybody's all in love and wants to see the Bigfoot poop. So, I don't know if you are familiar with Squatch in USA or Dr. Matthew Johnson.
I've heard the names.
So that came from him. Full disclosure, it is a replica, of course, because Dr. Johnson still has the original. So he there's a picture in that display of the original turd on the back of his pickup truck, where it's folded, and that he was actually following Zorth. Is the name of his Bigfoot that he has constant interaction with, just like, you was talking about those people who have them living on their property. So he has constant interaction with this family, and Zorth is their leader. And so he was following him. He knew it was him because he recognized the tracks, and he was obviously like just right behind him. So funny story, and I always share it with people. So a lot of it's fun. Bigfoot fact is Bigfoot actually walks like your number 2 attraction. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So Bigfoot walks in a straight line, like how we, if they would say, walk the line with your foot's over, and instead of side by side, like how we do. So Dr. Johnson was following this one in the straight line, and then all of a sudden the feet spread out. And then there was that nice specimen right there waiting for him. So that's how he knew that's where it came from, because it was very fresh. And the funny thing about the Bigfoot poop, David just shared with us over Christmas, is a guy actually came into the museum long after it had been open, and he was a salesman asking if anybody was looking for fake poop. And then poor part of me's like, one, who sells that?
Yeah.
But hey, it worked. And David was actually like, actually, yeah, I kind of am, because he had, gotten the picture from Dr. Johnson or something to that effect. And the guy, the thing is actually a industrial byproduct to where it looks kind of like feces. And now we have a display for Bigfoot poop, and it's cool because it's actually right under. There's a huge display of like signs of Bigfoot, like the tree twistings, the tree structures, the hideouts, things like that. And then you have the Bigfoot poop in the woods there with it, and it's right next to the DNA lab. So I always love it to do it with the kids, and I actually stole this from one of the other employees. So I give her full credit. She says, and inside here you'll see our DNA lab. The kids usually enjoy the Bigfoot poop, and then the kids go, and then I go, don't worry, it's not smelly anymore.
How long was it?
I think it's 36 inches.
Yeah, that's oh my god.
Inches and at least an inch to inch and a half more in diameter. So if that was a person, Lord love them, because that owl.
Yeah, you probably would have found the body close by.
Probably.
So y'all, we've been at it hour and 16 minutes. If y'all, I know y'all have had some questions. If y'all have a few questions, and we can get that and then wrap it up. I don't want to keep you too long, but if you ever want to come back, and we'll okay. She says she had the rest of the evening, but she doesn't know me, y'all. We had a show one time with Greg and Kumbo and Mr. Parker that lasted 6 hours. So don't.
Oh wow.
It's legendary. It's like the marathon.
It's a marathon show. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, it took me 2-3 days to get over that. Anybody, if you have any questions for Amanda, y'all can ask them now. Put them in all caps or whatever. I know, there's so many, and I don't want to give away, the everything that's in there, but we definitely want to come by.
I highly recommend anybody who gets a chance to go and check it out. And another question that people ask all the time is this the only Bigfoot museum out there? And they are actually several. One of them surprisingly being in Oklahoma. And I think there was one in Iowa, which Jeremiah taught me about that. There's the International Cryptozoology Museum in Maine. There's the one in Bailey, Colorado, the Sasquatch Outpost, Jim Myers's place, which is actually really cool. I finally got the chance to go there 2 years ago on vacation. Cool. And then, of course, there's several of them throughout the PNW. So,
and I imagine they're all kind of
your local Bigfoot place.
Well, David said there's one in Oregon. Is that Boring, Oregon, the one that Cliff has? Cliff from Finding
Probably.
Bigfoot?
Yeah.
All right. So
what is it? The
Wendell
to Bramlett Trout Farm. I have not.
Wendell has a family out there, I think, or his family owns that. So
okay, I might have to look it up then.
Yeah, Cliff Barackman. So David Blaylock, he's from Coos Bay, Oregon. So
okay,
and you know how
we get people bucket list to get out too.
We get people from all over the country, and we got some in here from like other parts of the world too. So, and hopefully, y'all, because when you go, and if Amanda's there, you're going to have fun because she's into the subject. She's had experiences, and that's if you watch her TikTok stuff, she's full of energy. I wish I was full. I'm getting older, so I don't have that much energy. But it's TikTok is crazy because I've had 300 or 400 views, 1,500 views, whatever. Then I had one time it blew up. Like that's you said, kind of scared me a little bit, but
yeah.
But if y'all don't have any more questions, I'll let her go. If we might could do, I'll tell you what we do. I know we can't go through the museum, but I might do a little short. If we come in and say hi to you,
that's okay. Cool.
If you're there,
absolutely, please do. And I'll be glad to come back on anytime and share any more stories that I got because I got tons more that I've personally experienced, not just Bigfoot, family. I've got all the stuff, the ones I can share from the museum. People have questions, hit me up. I'll see what I can do to answer them.
Well, if you want to tell a story or two from your family, that's awesome.
Yeah. So my dad's seen Dogman. Does that count?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. We're that scares me. I'm gonna tell you right now.
That scare the absolute snot out of me. Mothman and Dogman, out of all the cryptids out there, those scare the absolute snot out of me. And I pray to the good Lord above I never run into anything like that in the woods. 100%. I will go up and cuddle a Bigfoot before I want to mess with any of those.
I understand. Yeah. But see, what do you think the thing you don't know what the thing that you saw, the half of it, you don't know what it was? You still don't?
I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was like an actual Sasquatch.
Right.
Or what it was, because it didn't have like a full muzzle like a dog or even like a gorilla or a bear or anything, but it also wasn't flat like a human or an ape. And it was also covered in hair. There was a little bit because its mouth was open and all I could see was open mouth. So, and I could make out like a human or type nose, just barely. That was like a tiny little slit. But I do remember very prominent brows with no like eyebrows, so the hair was kind of like that around it.
No wonder you had nightmares. But man, if you ever figure it out, let us know. Because I just got introduced to Dogman in the last 6 or 8 months, and you're right. The stories that I've heard, I don't know what they are, and I don't want to find out.
Agreed, because there's been very few stories that I've heard that are positive when it comes to those things. 90% of them are not. Yeah, my dad had an encounter with one here in North Georgia as well. I won't give the exact place just because he's actually a very private man. And he was working on the property that he manages, and they had already had a lot of spooky stuff going on there. That word right there. That's the word.
Michael X came through.
Yeah. Igogwe. That was the name that somebody gave me when I mentioned that in another podcast. But my dad was grinding on a lawnmower blade on the back of his pickup, and he had a little small S10 type small pickup, and he had it backed into the garage where he was working, and he was grinding on it, and he just kind of got this weird feeling like he was being watched or something, just that sixth sense. He's a true blue mountain man as they come. He's seen things other than this, but he went to grinding on that saw blade again, and he heard the gravel crunch right there in front of the truck, and he looked up, and there it was right there in front of his truck. Between the most distance between him and his pickup truck, and that's all the distance there was between it. It was dark black, looking at him. It was on two legs, but kind of stooped over. It kind of just looked at him like it was curious, like, what you doing making all that racket? And just kind of, when he stopped and looked up at it, it just kind of huffed at him and then took off and ran up through the woods. And I have three brothers. My middle brother he's working with him at the time. They took some cell phone pictures of some tracks that it did leave behind in the area. But what was really interesting is whenever that property was sold and went to new ownership and new management, every bit of the weird paranormal activity that was going on around there, including this thing, disappeared. And even my mom will tell you, my dad, he's a true blue mountain man. He ain't scared of nothing and as mean as a snake. And this thing scared him. He don't like talking about it. I probably shouldn't be sharing it, but it really messed with him. I mean, he said of all the times he always carries around a giant of a Clint Eastwood revolver with him. And said it was one day it was in the cab of the truck. It wasn't on his side. Was when that happened.
Well, and then it makes you wonder. You think about it. Was it maybe the sound that he was making with that grinder may have drawn it in? Maybe it never had heard that before.
Something to that effect, yeah.
Because we've heard people, and you've probably heard talk about with some of these cryptids, you hear the metal sound out in the woods.
Yes,
and, you know what I mean?
Yes, I was about to go into that. You hear the metal sound and scraping, and I forget there was I think it may have been Martin Groves or one of those where they talk about hearing the metal sound before they end up seeing like a door opening or something like that, metal scraping against metal before they end up having encounters with these things, almost like maybe they were turned loose.
Well, that's another, yeah. I've heard that theory also, especially like Land Between the Lakes. Barton was just in here, his buddy, Martin's buddy. I think you just mentioned, I don't, but anyway, he told me we were standing at the LBL out there at Colson Hollow, and I was asking him about were there a secret base, military base. He said, "You're standing on it." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "It's everywhere." And I'll be dang, Michael X can tell you, Greg, Abby was probably there in chat. We had the fire going, probably 100 people out there around the fire, and we had military helicopters flying over low checking us out. So that was kind of eerie. It probably wasn't anything to it, but it's just eerie.
Still makes you think, doesn't it?
Well, see, PJ right here, she lives in Arkansas, PJ, Arkansas. She said, I heard the metal sound right before my sighting. Mm-hmm. So we've got a spot in the north end of the county that we've heard metal sounds. And we told my son's girlfriend, we were eating one night on a Friday night. It was late. We were at a barbecue restaurant, and we were talking about it. And she thought she was calling our bluff, like, well, let's go see. And we're like, oh yeah, let's go. And she's scared of the dark. She's like, oh no. We pulled up and shut the truck off. I got out to do something, and I heard her whispering. And she was telling my son that she heard it on her side. right as I shut it off and everything, and in exactly the way we had described it, that's where we saw the orb that time. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what it could be, but I don't know. Is that what sound you hear when it steps through?
Yeah, I
The
don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows? Nobody has all the answers. They may think some of them may have a hard head and think that they do, but they don't. There's
Well, like I
so many
said,
to this puzzle.
right. We're speculating a lot, but when you get enough people, because like some of the stuff I've heard in the past year or so, it's like I've experienced in the past, but I'm like, whoa, wait, what did you just say? Because something that had happened, then you start putting your pieces of your puzzle together, right?
Exactly.
I didn't know that. Mr. Schultz says he says wonder why you're not allowed to use metal detectors at the LBL.
Oh,
I don't
did
know.
not know that either.
I didn't know that either. I'd have got in trouble. Well,
Yep. Interesting thing. So long before I knew the stories about the LBL and all the woo and scariness and boogers that go on there, we was driving past the LBL. I was going to St. Louis with my grandparents and coming back, and for whatever reason, I just kept getting this like eerie feeling as we're all driving on the interstate. Just that whole area just gives you the heebie-jeebies, if that makes any sense.
There's an energy. I'm not as fine tuned as a lot of people, but it does happen, and there are certain parts of that place, like there are stretches that just seem okay to me. But then there's certain parts you get to that it feels heavy, and there's cemeteries everywhere. There's a lot of there's just happened there we probably don't know about because it's so many acres and there's not many police officers. So let's see. That's what Michael X says here. If I ever hear the metallic grinding or scraping noise, I guess I have to make a decision to close my eyes or open them up and head on a swivel. Well,
one or the other. Probably for me to tuck my head between my knees and
I know, right?
Or take off running and get a change of underwear.
Yeah, and people say they'll react a certain way, but you don't know until it happens. And like when you told the story about your dad, that wouldn't be a normal reaction for a predator to come up to where somebody's at. But I know for a fact, and you probably know this growing up in the country, when there's lawnmowers, tractors, and equipment involved, you can slip up on animals because it's just you know what I mean? So y'all, this is kind of similar, but not. I was fixing a blind one time before the season had been open a few days, and I'm like, well, I've got a blue harp over here. So long story short, I had 3 cans of paint, and I'm shaking this can of paint, and it's rattle, 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 and I rattled up a 10-point buck because he thought 2 other bucks were fighting. Now, if that can happen in nature, if he mistakenly thought it was 2 bucks fighting, and it was definitely ball bearings in a can. So that goes with your dad. If he's making that metal sound, then maybe it does sound similar.
Could be. And that's what scared him so bad about it. Because, he's run up on bears. He's had mountain lions, after him, the whole works. But he said what scared him the most is that it snuck up on him like that. And if it wanted to have killed him, if it wanted to get him, it could have, but it didn't. It had intent there with it. Right. And that's what scared him the most.
Wow. That is scary. All right, y'all. Thank you, Amanda.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It's been fun. It's gone by so fast.
It really has.
And the reaction that I've got, and I've had fun. So, I mean, if you're up for it, if you get I know you've got a bunch of them, but you can contact me too and say, hey, let's schedule a show sometime or whatever, and I'll be in touch.
Okay, yeah, let's just keep in touch, and I can throw you up on my schedule anytime, just like what we did today. We can make it work out. I'd love to come back for a part 2.
Yes, definitely. And I appreciate you. Y'all have a good night. Please go follow her on TikTok and all the social medias because we just scraped the tip of the iceberg tonight. She
Oh, absolutely.
goes into a lot of different what theories.
Theories, yes.
And I like it too. She'll call people out because one guy, I guess he sent her a message and was like, "Hey, Ron Moorhead said admitted that he faked those," and I'm like, "Whoa, no, he didn't."
That's what I was like.
Amanda
If
was
you're
right
going
on
to
it.
argue and say that he faked it, where's the evidence that says that he faked it? I want to see that part so that way we can have all of the evidence. But that evidence doesn't exist, then just saying. I don't deal with bullies. I've been bullied way too much my whole life. And especially when it comes to Bigfoot stuff like this, bullies, y'all go on somewhere.
And she did it in a nice way. I will say that. And I hardly ever comment and get involved, but I'm like, no, he's never said that. He'll go. I mean, this guy is like, he'll tell you, I don't care if you believe it or not. This is what I got. And this, hey. So anyway, yeah, we'll do a part 2, y'all. I think they want it too. So, but if you go check, oh yeah, Amanda, if you get time, check out Woodwalkers with a Z.
Okay, yeah, I will definitely find them and check them out for sure.
Because,
I heard you mention them a couple times already tonight, so I'll definitely look them up.
They're not only are they good friends, that there's a lot of great researchers that are connected. So I think you would enjoy seeing some of them on their show. I've had them on some of mine, but it'd be impossible to watch in a month or whatever. But just you've got time, right? And Greg's been to the museum 2 or 3 times. He told me yesterday.
Okay, cool. I'd probably see him if I came in. I'd be surprised how many people I've recognized from coming in. I was like, I've seen you before. I've seen you before. Yeah. I've always been one who could pick up faces.
Yeah, well, I'm hanging on the wall there. I'm not kidding. But all right, y'all, I'm fixing to get off here. Amanda, I'll talk to you in just a second, okay?
All right, sounds good, Roger. Have a good night.
See y'all.